What's going on, guys? Horns of the Reach patch is finally here, and I can finally show you guys my updated Stalwart Knight StamDK PvP build. A little bit has changed since the last time you saw this build, and I just want to get right into it. So we all know StamDKs are very tanky, and they have a lot of heals, but in turn, that means they're very slow. So with being tanky, and with having a lot of healing, you need to be able to hold down your own when there's a lot of people on you. With that said, you need to have a lot of ult regen because that allows you to restore your resources. It helps to have good stam regen too because, especially with this build that I'm doing in particular, you're not a perma-block build and you don't want to abuse the block button. You also need to concentrate on pressure because pressure keeps people off of you. If you deal a lot of damage, people aren't going to want to go near you too much. And while doing so, you need to maintain your couple heals that you're running. And this goes for Dragonknights in general. If you're running all your heals and you have all your resistances up, you could last in a fight for a very long time with very little repercussion. Moving right along, I'm going to quickly show you guys just the whole nitty-gritty of the pots that I'm using, the foods, the raids, and whatnot. So as you saw before, I'm running a Wood Elf StamDK. Reason being, I really like Y'Free's Endurance. This passive is really good. Especially with the build that I'm trying to focus on, I like a lot of stam regen. It's very helpful. Not to mention, it gives you 6% extra stam, and you gain a pretty decent amount of poison and disease resistance. For the boon, we're using the Warrior. Just today, the final launch of Horns of the Reach across all platforms, all the boons got buffed, with some being nerfed, but we don't care about those. Warrior got buffed really well. So, we have 327 additional weapon damage, and you'll see why that's so high in a moment. Right below that, we're using the Dubious Camaran Throne. This is, in my opinion, one of the most dominant foods in the game. It grants you 319 stam recovery, 3,192 max stam, and 3,511 max health. It's very balanced. For potions, I like using the immovability pots. They grant you, obviously, immovability. It restores 9,038 health immediately, grants you the Major Fortitude, restores 7,582 stam, gives you Major Endurance, and it's good stuff. This really helps. You could also use the immovability pots that give you Major Expedition because it's very helpful to actually be quick on this build or in DKs in general, because if you can move, you get out of conflicts that you know you can't win. So being evasive is always a plus on any build. So if you need to make those evasive pots, do so. They work perfectly fine. Two things I want to point out as well, and I did not do one of them. You want to make sure you get medicinal use. Like I said, I still have to do this. I'm very lazy. I don't like leveling up my professions in this game. So get this. If you invest all 3 points into medicinal use, it makes the resulting effects last 30% longer, which is extremely helpful. Also, right above that, you want to get to Undaunted level 9, because the Undaunted metal passive is very important. Undaunted Command's also pretty helpful as well, but not as much as Undaunted Metal. You need to get this passive. Very quickly before I get into the stats, skills, and champion points, I just want to show you the buff stats very quickly. So we have 21,000 spell resistance, 18,000 physical resistance, 4,100 crit resistance, 4,242 weapon damage, 1,600 stamina regen, which goes up to actually 2,000 and about 93 if my math is right. That's with killing something with the two-handed passives, and that's also with major endurance. We have 34k max stam on the front bar, 35 and some change on the back bar, almost 17k health on the front bar, 11k max magicka. On the back bar we have a little bit more magicka, a little bit more health, and slightly more stam. As for the sets, I'm using a Maelstrom Wall and Nirnhound. Nirnhound got a pretty good buff this patch, and this is really good. I messed around with it in duels here and there. It's already better than the Sharpened Greatsword in my opinion. Right below that, we're using 2 Shacklebreaker. For the enchants, I really like using the weapon damage and spell damage enchants because with this applied, we're looking at 4,729 weapon damage buffed up. I'm going to show you how to use this a little bit later, but it's pretty good. And then for the Shackle Breaker shield, I go Reinforced because we don't really need that much more crit resistance because I'm not exactly sure what crit resistance cap is, but I messed around with it with a couple of buddies of mine, and I think 41 is right where you want to be because the critical damage that is applied to you if the opponent does crit, there's no actual difference between a standard attack and a crit. So I would say 4k to 41 is the most you'll want to go, but I'm not exactly sure what the cap is. With that said, Reinforce just gives you a standard amount of resistance, and it's pretty helpful because we are not at cap resistance. For the enchant on the shield, I'm using a Prasmat Glyph. I just like having a little bit more magicka, a little bit more health, and a little bit more stamina because with the Prasmat Glyph, I could get one more Ignis shield out. Helps with sustain a little bit. It also gives me a little bit more health if I need it. It's not really going to make or break you. You could even just run a max magicka glyph or a max stam glyph. It's up to you. We're using 2 blood spawn, right? This is medium armor. This is medium armor as well. Then we're using 5 impreg. With this impregnable set, you want to go all divines, and you'll see why in a second. So first of all, this adds 1200 max health, 1000 some change max stam, 1000 some change max magicka, and 2500 critical resistance. It's very, very strong. This allows us to run all divines and allows us to use our weapon mundus to just front load as much damage as we possibly can. This makes us very tanky, and this makes us hit very hard. I am using 1 heavy. It's not the right piece of heavy that I want, but I don't really care. I'm just going to stick with it. You would normally want a chest piece that's heavy, or any big piece of armor. You could use the blood spawn as a big piece. Like I said, chest piece works just as well. The legs are good, but stay away with what I did. I made the mistake of golding out a heavy feet, which is considered a small piece, but it's fine. It's not that big of a difference. You basically just want 1 heavy to give you a little bit more health in the heavy armor passive, which is right here. You want Resolve, Constitution, and Juggernog. These are the 3 you could get, and these help you a little bit. Not to mention, the reason why we're running 6 medium is because Dexterity is pretty helpful, helps our crit healing a little bit, and our crit damage, because the more you crit, in turn, you actually will do a little bit more damage. Windwalker is basically the whole reason why we're doing 6 medium. The reduced cost is really, really helpful. Then with agility, we have 12% additional damage. This is flat damage. This is what I like. I like flat stats. Then athletics is pretty helpful as well. Then last, we're using agility. All with weapon damage and chance. All robust. If you want to get a little bit more health, if you want to be at like 18.5k to 19k, you could use 1 healthy, which is perfectly fine. I just prefer doing robust. I think the more stam you get, the better. As for skills, for the front bar for 2-handed, we're using Stampede. That is found right here. Crit Rush is pretty good. I found myself changing to Stampede because I find it's more beneficial to control your enemy, because if you reduce their movement speed by 60%, it allows you to hit them with other abilities a lot more often and a lot more easily. Right next to that, second ability, Dizzying Swing. This is our main ability. This is our main damage dealing ability. It's very, very, very strong. Third ability, Reverse Slice. This is our Execute. Our Splash AoE Execute. Very strong. And then I'm using Rally. I don't use Forward Momentum because A, the burst heal on Rally is too good to pass up, especially in medium armor. So I would highly, highly suggest you go Rally instead of Forward Momentum. And then, this is where the build changed a little bit. I'm no longer using Venomous Claw. Alright? The reason why I'm using Evil Hunter, or you could use Camo Hunter if you want, is because A, in the Fighters Guild passives, having a Fighters Guild ability slotted grants you 3% extra damage, and with that, it helps with your crit heals, and it's very helpful. And along with that, if you press the ability, you can bring Nightblades out of stealth for a period of time. I think it's about 4 to 5 seconds, which helps. I wouldn't spam this too often though, because as you see, it's pretty expensive, so don't abuse this. Use it for emergencies. Best ultimate in the game, Take Flight. This ability is amazing. I love it. Gotta use it. Back bar. we are using Resolving Vigor. This is our main dot heal. Gotta have it. Want all of these passives as well. These are very important. We also no longer use Noxious Breath. Reason being, Ransack is cheaper. It costs 1,327 stam. It gives you Major Fracture, gives you Minor Resolve, and it lasts longer, right? And it actually hits pretty hard too if you weave it in with a heavy attack, ability, and bash. Like I was saying, Noxious Breath, it costs 2,020 stam. It doesn't nearly last as long. And with this build, you're really focusing on damage and conserving your stamina. Because the less stam you're using, the less risk you're going to take, and the more survivability you will have, right? Because in turn, the shorter the fights, the less resources you use, and the less mistakes you make, right? So you got to keep that in mind. For our next ability, using Hardened Armor, you could use Spiked Armor if you want. I just prefer Hardened Armor. It gives you a little bit more mitigation towards damage, and I like that. Next up, we have Shuffle, found in the Medium Armor skill tree. It's very strong, gives you Major Evasion, increases your dodge chance by 15% for 23 seconds. And each piece of Medium Armor worn removes and grants immunity to snares and immobilizations for 0.5 seconds. Pretty helpful. Right after that is a pretty standard DK ability, Igneous Shield. It's basically your Major Mending and a very small damage shield as well. Not to mention, Helping Hands. Pretty strong. Works very, very, very well with our recovery. And for our backbar ultimate, I'm using Spell Wall. This ability is awesome. This saves your life all the time. Diving right into CP, we're going to start in the tower. I have 31 into Warlord. I have 9 into Sprinter. I like having 9 into Sprinter because if I'm with one of my friends and he happens to be like a Stamsork or a Nightblade and he's flying around ambushing left and right, and I can't gap close because I'm simply not at the right distance to gap close, I'll have to sprint up a little bit, and I'll have to crit rush or do whatever gap closer I have. This allows me to conserve a little bit more stam. It's not much. You don't even have to put these in here. I just feel comfortable with this. Right next to that, 49 into Tenacity. This allows us to sustain very well with our heavy and heavy attack weaves. We have Mooncalf. We have 13% extra stamina recovery. Then we have Healthy. I don't really know why I put these here. I just did. You could take these 8 out and put them wherever you want. I have 48 into Tumbling, which reduces the cost of roll dodge by 18.24%. It's pretty helpful. We have Shadow Ward, which reduces the cost of block by 5.23%. It's very helpful. Next, 32 into Blessed. After that, 20 into Physical Weapon Expert, 48 into Master at Arms. You could take a little bit out of Physical Weapon Expert and put it into Shattering Blows. It's up to you. Shattering Blows is pretty good with fighting Magicosaurus or anything that really, any class that shield stacks. Next up, 26 into Precise Strikes, 37 into Piercing, 49 into Mighty. Right after that, 44 into Resistant, 3 into Spell Shield, 9 into Medium Armor Focus. You could kind of play around with these two, Spell Shield and Medium Armor Focus. I just kind of slapped these points here because I didn't really have anywhere else to put them. Then I have 23 into Ironclad to grant me 10% reduction towards direct damage abilities. 23 into Thick Skinned, 49 into Hardy, 49 into LA Defender. You could kind of mix and match, or you could place these points in different amounts of distribution. It just matters where you feel like you're more vulnerable. If you feel like you need a little bit more physical resistance, put them into Hardy, and vice versa, put them into LA Defender. End of the day, you just want this Unchained passive. This is very, very, very important. Then next, we have 7 to Quick Recovery and 13 into Expert Defender. Another big thing that I chose to do with this build is I went Vampire, and I do not regret it. It is really, really, really good. The reason why is we're using Supernatural Recovery. This increases our Magicka and Stam recovery by 10%. It's pretty good. And this is really the big reason why we're using it. We're using the Undeath passive. It reduces your damage taken up to 33% based on your missing health while you're below 50% health. This makes you very tanky. And don't worry, Dawnbreakers, they hurt, but if you know how to mitigate dots well, and if you put points into thick skin like I did, Dawnbreaker's not going to hurt you that much. Then you want Unnatural Resistance, obviously. It's pretty helpful. And surprisingly, I really like this passive, Darkstalker. It helps a lot, because a big thing with DKs is if a lot of people are coming after you, like if you have like 9 or 10 people after you, there's not a lot of ways you could actually just back out of the fight. Because there's times where you know if you're going into a lot of high CP players, there's a chance you're not going to make it out alive, right? So you got to find a way to quickly get out of the conflict unseen. This allows you to do that. You could crouch, and there's no movement speed penalty, which is pretty helpful. Back to what I was saying about the enchantment on the back bar dagger, the Shacklebreaker dagger. What I like to do when I enter a fight is I enter with a heavy attack, right? So heavy attack, ransack bash, takes a big chunk of health out of the enemy. Then you can start going to town, right? That raises your damage and also allows you to get your healing a little bit higher too, because the higher damage you have, the more healing you have. So A gives you more burst for 5 seconds, and B, you have more healing. So every couple of seconds, you want a heavy attack, ransack bash, gives you the major fracture, gives you the enchantment, and you get more damage and more healing. To be honest as well, you can even go infused with this dagger. I have it sharpened. I'm probably going to stick with sharpened, but infused would actually most likely be a little bit more of a rewarding effect because you could use the enchantment so much more often. And in turn, that means your healing is a little bit more sustainable, your damage is a little bit more sustainable, and it's good stuff.
In the following clips, I'm just going to show you my brief gameplay mechanics that I go through in PvP. In this clip, I see a Magplar and a Mag Sword. This blue comes and tries to help. He doesn't last very long, unfortunately. My first instinct is to get rid of this Magplar, because I don't want him off healing or anything like that. This Mag Sword ulti dumps on me. It's a meteor. Always block those, otherwise they're going to do a lot of damage and potentially kill you. Notice also, I'm doing that heavy attack ransack bash. Not that it's like going to do a lot of damage or anything, but it's always good to get that heavy attack going because it's going to maintain your resources, you're going to get that enchantment proc, and you're going to be getting that major fracture on the person. At this point, I'm just waiting for the shields to come off. I catch him slipping, he's done. Here, find a Nightblade. I think I'm alone with him. Turns out I'm not. There's some, I don't know what class this guy is, but I want to get rid of him. He's low level. He's done. I quickly notice another yellow on the horizon. I know that I want to make it a little bit easier for myself. I go to this rock to get some line of sight. See if I can get this Nightblade to back off of me a little bit. All of a sudden, Destro Ultimate pops up. I need to get out of there. Those do a good bit of damage. He fears me. Break as fast as I can. Dragonknight to get the resources back. Maintaining those heavy attacks, get that stand back as well. Evil Huntered him because I think he's wearing Shadow Walker. Saw there also. I got rid of that Templar. And soon after this, I get zerged down by like 15 people. I didn't show it because I just didn't feel like there was a need to, but it kind of goes to show that if you do get zerged down, there's not a lot you can do if you're not a permablock build. So just be careful of that. Make sure you choose your fights well.
All in all, guys, I think you're really going to like the design of this build. It allows you to be very tanky, you dish out an incredible amount of damage, and you sustain quite well. On another note, I'm not going to be uploading as often as I was previously simply because school is starting up for me, I got to study, I'm not going to be able to play ESO or really that many video games for that matter. I'm going to bring my laptop, I'm probably going to stream other games, but I'll make another ESO video within the next month or two. But stay tuned, hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section below. And as always, have a good day. Thank you for watching.